Hi, Blue Lakers. This is Greg Dudzienski. I am the jazz saxophone teacher and the conductor of the Blue Note Jazz Band for Session 3 at Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp. I'm coming to you from my apartment in Chicago, Illinois, where I am, like a lot of you, hanging out at home, doing my part to flatten the curve and not spread this nasty virus around. It occurs to a lot of us at Blue Lake that there are some of you out there that may not be able to keep up with your lessons or with your band programs or anything like that while you're stuck at home. So we thought it might be a nice idea and maybe a little bit fun if some of us who teach for Blue Lake offered some information and some resources about some things you can be doing at home to keep your skills up and to maybe have a little fun and save off some boredom. So what I want to talk about today are something that a lot of you have probably worked on a lot in your time. That's scales, major scales. So when we work on major scales, we probably do them something like this. Or some variation of that. Now I'm doing C concert, which is for me as a tenor saxophonist D major. If you're an alto saxophonist, it would be A major. If you're a trumpet player, it would be D major. But it really doesn't matter what scale you start on because we're going to hopefully do them in all 12 keys anyway. But what I want to talk about with scales is just being a little bit creative in how we practice them and maybe opening up our ears and our fingers so that we can get a little bit more control over these scales. Now, a way I like to do that, and the way that my teachers first started having me do that when I was getting to know this way of playing, was to do the scales modally. Now what that means is, if you imagine a scale as a group of 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the 8th note is the octave. You can start that scale on any one of those notes using the same group of notes. So again, I'm using concert C, which is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now, what if I started that on concert D instead of concert C, but used all the same notes? Or concert E, etc., etc. You see, I could start the major scale on any one of the notes of that scale and play it up and down, and I get a slightly different sound. Those are called modes. Each one has a name that comes from the Greek. We don't have to get into that today. It's more important right now to get used to playing them and hearing what they sound like. So how could I practice these? A simple way would be something like this. So what I did there was I played the concert C major scale, but I did it from each note of the scale. First I started from concert C, then I started from concert D, then from concert E, etc., etc., up and down the scale. Now, one of the things that can help alleviate boredom with something like this is to be a little bit creative in how you're doing it. Maybe you don't want to do it the same way every time. So here are some ideas for how to change it up and maybe keep it a little bit more interesting. Maybe you could do them all going up. Etc., etc. Maybe you can do them all going down. like that. Maybe you can combine them. You can go up one, down another one. Or maybe you can go down one, then up another one. Etc., etc. The idea is to be as creative and as loose with this as you can, so you're always figuring out a different way to keep it interesting for yourself and not get locked into one way of playing scales where you're just going etc., etc. Because that can get a little bit boring. It can get a little bit mindless. This way we keep our minds and our ears engaged all the time. Now, I'm talking about this in the context of being a jazz player, but it's important to understand that this kind of practicing is good for all instrumentalists, whether you're a classical flute player, a jazz saxophone player, or an orchestral violin player. Working on your scales this way will do wonders for your technique. It will do wonders for your ears, because you really begin to learn what a key sounds like. You'll learn what the key of C or the key of F sounds like. And also, for some of you, this may be relatively simple. If that's the case, I encourage you to, as quickly as you can, do this kind of exercise through all 12 keys. For those of you who are comfortable with all 12 keys doing this kind of work in major, maybe you try it with melodic minor. That'll be another lesson. That'll be the next thing we talk about, probably. But until then, keep playing, keep singing, keep acting, keep drawing and painting, keep dancing. All of these things are important, and especially now. We need your art and we need your creativity in the world. So be well, be safe, wash your hands, and we'll see you at camp.